Dredge is one of those games that is quite hard to write a good review on, because much like in opposition to Lovecraftian horrors, the longer you look at it, the more mundane it gets. That is to say that this game is best experienced for the first time by yourself, actually playing it yourself and exploring and experiencing everything firsthand, instead of through a YouTube video on it. Regardless, I'll start by giving you a quick overview of the game and my opinion on it before diving deeper, at which point you can decide for yourself what to do, of course. So, Dredge is a fishing simulator game with Lovecraftian undertones. That much is clear just from the Steam store page. The main aspect to play the game for is, in my opinion, the exploration. The game is set in a cozy island chain with you starting in the middle of it. You get gifted a small and slow fishing boat after you make your entrance by smashing your own boat on the rocks beneath the lighthouse. You can upgrade this boat over time, and that is the main way you progress through the game. You start out by helping some locals through your fishing skills, fulfilling pursuits here and there, making some money by selling your fish, all to buy better gear and whatnot. But then stranger things start creeping in. You need to deliver an eerie, slimy package across the bay. You find a gloomy, abandoned island. Panic starts to set in on the days you make it home after dark, and you start seeing things. Everyone is afraid of the sea at night, though, so it's okay, right? Especially with that fog rolling in every night. So you start venturing out further as you upgrade your engines, start getting more comfortable in the evening as you get better lights, and then you fish up something that should not be there, should not even exist. And then the veil starts to unravel. I think that's a pretty good overview of the first impressions the game gives you, or gave me at least, with even from the start there being a sort of gloomy atmosphere all around. You start the game by smashing against some rocks in front of the lighthouse after all, which doesn't make a lot of sense. The music from the start is also a bit dark, I guess, melancholic is perhaps more accurate. And pair this with the art style of the characters, and this definitely has Lovecraft vibes all over it, I think, even without knowing this before turning on the game. Gameplay wise, it plays well, and it does a lot to keep the fishing interesting, with a minigame being present when you're fishing at a fishing spot. But these minigames differ between certain types of fish, and while in essence they're all the same, just press a button at the right time, it does keep things fresh. You also have some inventory management to do, since a lot of fish have different shapes and you have a fairly limited inventory, so you can play a bit of inventory Tetris to make the most out of your small inventory. This mechanic sadly doesn't get explored too much though, aside from the equipment you have to install being present in the same space as the fish and materials you pull out of the water, and the fish starting to get less fresh the longer they are in your hold or storage, but it doesn't really go past that. Difficulty wise, it's not too hard. I think I actually died maybe once or twice, and then you just get set back to your last dock visit autosave, so it's not that big of a deal. The world itself is interesting, and there's tons of things to see, islands to explore around and people to meet. So, if this lifting of the tip of the veil piqued your interest, I'd advise you to pick up the game yourself and experience it firsthand, like I said. Personally, I do think it's worth it, having bought it at basically full price during the Steam summer sale, and I 100%ed it at around 20 hours of playtime, with at least 15 of those 20 hours being genuinely interesting and engaging, with every island area you come across having their own unique mood, visuals, fish and challenges. So, this is your last warning. If you want to play it yourself and you haven't yet, I highly advise you to click like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and then close this video, go buy the game and play it yourself. If you still want to see more, or have already played the game, or just want to continue for whatever reason, then let's dredge up the rest that the game has to offer. So, as I already mentioned, Exploration is the main focus here. You meet the collector fairly early on, after you caught your first aberration, who gives you your dredge equipment, at which point the game really starts to open up, allowing you to dredge up upgrade materials for your hull. He also gives you the overall goal of the game, which is to gather 5 relics, for some, as of yet, unknown purpose. Each of these relics is found in a unique area on the map, and is usually tied to a unique specific NPC who is having their own problems there, requiring you to help them. While I'm pretty sure you can just explore the islands in whatever order you want, you are somewhat limited by what you can do there by your gear. It's not feasible to just go to Devil's Spine from day 1, for example, because you simply won't make it there because you're too slow and weak. And even if you got there, you wouldn't be able to catch anything because you'd need a volcanic rod for that. So in general, it is a good idea to follow the route the collector gives you, steadily increasing your capabilities as you go. The Marrows, the area where you start, is of course something like a tutorial area. It's even blocked off by some rocks to really give you a sense of safety, and it has a lot of fishing spots to get you started making money. Once you start dredging up materials to work towards your dry dock and hull upgrades, it all starts getting more and more interesting. Because the dredging is by far the most time-consuming stuff you do, since time only moves when you do and while you're fishing. I suspect this is the main reason why there's no upgrades for your dredge equipment, to kind of lock you into place for a while and push you into night every so often when you found a treasure dredging spot a little bit out of the way, or still want to get a little bit more lumber from this lumber dredging spot. You can also dredge up research parts, as well as obtain them through exploration and finishing pursuits, which you need to spend on actually unlocking new equipment in the stores. This system makes sense as it prevents you from simply fishing up cod and mackerel for 20 hours to buy out all of the best equipment, forcing you to explore and go out to get better at exploring and going out. Pursuits also often reward you with books, which you passively read and gain a passive bonus after completing them. These bonuses range from extra engine speed to fishing efficiency, and stacking them up really starts making a difference in your overall performance as a fisherman. The way the day-night cycle works in general is very well done, which is good since it's a fundamental part of the game loop. It's not like it just flips a switch and everything is dark all of a sudden. The sun goes down, it steadily gets darker, settlements start to light up, and buoys always give you a sense of safety. So you start to associate light with safe and good. And then you see another fishing boat cruising around at night. And maybe you go towards them to try and see what they're all about. But that foghorn doesn't sound quite right. It's these moments that make Dredge so captivating to me. It's when you're out at night fishing for some elusive nightly creatures, and every sound makes you look. Every movement caught just beyond your lights makes you reconsider going for another cast. This spell does break sometimes, especially towards the end of the game, where you can just run circles around some of the stuff that's out to get you, or just blast them away with gamer magic. But whenever you get too complacent, the game won't relent, unless you're playing on peaceful, of course. All in all, the atmosphere here is absolute top of the line, with the sound design being the absolute king here, of course, being very well done as far as I'm concerned. Every sound you hear is very deliberate, and in some areas you'll learn to fear certain sounds, while in others you'll learn to love them. The droning of this machine at Starlight Basin might sound annoying, but I'd rather have that over whatever it is protecting me from. You also get a sizable array of tools to use throughout your adventure. Each time you return to the collector with a relic, he grants you a new eldritch power, and these can be very useful in the right situations. Banish especially can be extremely useful. As for your more mundane tools, the spyglass is what you use the most. It allows you to look ahead and scout out what fish are in what spot. Super handy and a real must. Crab pots and trawl nets were fine, but I largely didn't bother with them outside of needing specific crabs or trawlfish for quests or completing the encyclopedia. The crab pots are useful since they're largely passive income, you just need to remember to collect them from time to time. But I unlocked them pretty late myself, as I took quite a while to finish up the pursuit that unlocks them, so it could be they're handier the earlier you get them. Trawl nets are also just passive income, which is great, but take up a sizable amount of rod space, which can make it difficult to choose between specific rod configurations or taking a trawl net instead. Since money isn't really that big of a factor in general, as long as you're actively fishing at least, I don't think trawl nets are really necessary or anything. But they are a cool addition to your general kit and do freshen things up, since you won't have to actively fish as much to still make some money. With each island having their own biome, and most of them having their own rod needs, with oceanic fish in between those biomes, Dredge has a lot to explore. A lot of the little islands between the big ones have either shrines or hooded figures on them who ask you to catch specific fish for them. Combining that with the more normal pursuits, there is quite a lot to do and find here, even without wanting to complete the encyclopedia by capturing all of the fish and all of their aberrations. I also thought it very cool that each area has its own distinct monster to contend with, each having their own way of dealing with them, though the one in the Gale Cliffs was by far the most annoying one, which is a little bit weird because it's the first real one you actually encounter. At least the other ones had clear ways of avoiding or dealing with them, but Gale Cliffs lacks any way to clearly avoid the creature, so that was a bit frustrating since damage here was seemingly inevitable. That is until you get fast enough to simply outrun it, as long as you don't break an engine by hitting something or getting hit, of course. The most recently added and most optional tool is a photo mode. This one was added in a free update together with general wildlife encounters, which you can take pictures of if you so wish. These encounters consist of stuff like whales breaching out of the water, dolphins accompanying you for a bit, or alligators staring at you, and are very nice additions to the otherwise lonely and stressful seafaring you do. This also helps to really accentuate the difference in mood between the day and night in Dredge, because whenever something is swimming near you at night, the last thing you'd want to do is take some funny pictures. Now, I've talked about how good the atmosphere can be in this game, but this does come with the caveat of it not being that difficult. While I certainly had enough tense moments, especially when exploring a new area for the first time or playing at night in real life, but Dredge, just like any game really, is still just that, a video game. Once you realize that, or let it sink in too much or think too much about it, this can take away of this building up of atmosphere and intrigue and the like, especially whenever you start looking up things like where to find a type of fish you might have missed, or a certain NPC or pursuit you can't figure out what to do with. For me, this general feeling of tense atmosphere lasted for a good while, by the way. Like I said, every new area brings with it a lot of new stuff to keep in mind, and I do feel that the game keeps that overall feeling of dread and mystery up until the very end of the story. The thing is, after that point, when or if you want to focus on finishing up some side quests or finish out the encyclopedia or just achievements in general, the magic definitely starts to wear off. To be clear here, I don't think this means the game is lesser as a whole, but I feel it was worth mentioning at least, since I spent, I would say, about the last 5 hours of my playtime going through those achievements and collecting the things I missed, and those were definitely the least interesting hours of the playthrough. The insane difference in speed, for example, also makes everything progressively less scary, like I mentioned. Making you progressively stronger is of course a staple of games in general, but in a game like Dredge, it can be to its detriment, even if the progress you make still feels very good to make. What I think might be a bit of a missed opportunity to keep you on your toes would be some type of resource management. While most of the time stuff like that can just be tedious at best and annoying at worst, in Dredge there's nothing that really requires you to fish up a lot. You don't need money unless you want to upgrade stuff or repair things, and depending on how clumsy you are, repairing could be a regular money spender, but really shouldn't be. The only real resource you have to manage at the moment is maybe your sanity, since not resting and spending too much time at night or getting hit by those evil fog entities is to your detriment, with more and more aggressive things starting to hunt you down as you get more and more paranoid. What might be a good idea is some type of fuel management perhaps, as that could fit in well with the overall inventory system that exists. Stocking up on fuel would mean less space for fish and equipment, something like that, perhaps with the ability to turn the fish into fuel as a last resort. This could bring more thought into what you fish up and would also need you to regularly spend money to buy that fuel. Basically, as it is now, I feel that there might be something missing in terms of in-game motivation to actually explore and fish, aside from just fishing up the relics themselves. And perhaps an optional hard mode could add something like this down the line as an extra challenge, but perhaps I'm completely wrong and this would feel like hot shit to play, of course. And now I'll talk a bit about the story in general, because I do think it does some very cool things here. So even if you stuck around for gameplay spoilers but don't want actual story spoilers, you can skip to this part in the video. As you go through the motions of helping out the collector and other NPCs and exploring the map as you go, some mysteries start to pop up. There's the mystery of the old fisherman that was here before you and what happened to him. There's the mystery of the old mayor who seemingly just vanished and went insane out of nowhere. There's the mystery of the collector being a strange presence who isn't really acknowledged by other characters. And then there's also the little bottled messages you find, which are pretty cryptic at start at least. As it turns out, maybe unsurprisingly, all of these mysteries are connected to each other by a single entity. You. As you learn by reading those messages, as well as inferring what you can by talking with the collector, the lighthouse keeper, and the old mayor who is still flitting from island to island in the unsettled parts of the chain, this is not your first time here. You used to come here, presumably a pretty long time ago, with your newlywed wife or wife-to-be, cruising around the islands on a type of honeymoon trip or just a trip in general, not entirely clear on that. One day, during one of those trips out on the water, you dredged up something special. Maybe it wanted to be found. Maybe it found you. It should not have been found. Devil's Spine speaks to that. Something came for you, and it took your wife. Time has passed, memories were repressed, and somehow the wind has taken you here once again. Or at least that's what I got from it. The recovering of the relics all amounts to a single goal: bringing your wife back. With the power of the book the collector has, it is possible, through enormous sacrifice, to bring her back. Bring her back. But at what cost? This represents one path you can take at the end of the road. The other is a lot more revealing. In case you didn't figure it out yourself, the collector is you. He is you, you are he. A fragment of yourself shattered, now trying to bring you back together. This is all done very well in game, by the way. I personally was quite shocked, in all honesty, though I realized something was amiss, though when isn't there something amiss in a game like this? Once this is revealed, by hiding the final relic instead of outright giving it to the collector, a second ending opens up. Having regained some shred of your full sanity, and perhaps a pang of guilt and despair churning in your belly, you can meet with the only other person who seems to know about your story, the lighthouse keeper. She will tell you to put the book back where it came from, to seal all of this away, and to make things right again. Doing this does not please it, however, and you are punished for your presumed insolence. A bittersweet ending, to be sure. Both of them are bittersweet, I guess, but this second one is a lot more sweet and a lot less bitter than the first. Personally, I think the way the story is done here is great and fits very well with the overall theme. Most of the time you are simply out on your fishing boat pondering your orb. The people you meet are all nameless too, by the way, only set apart by their appearance and title or description, which does make you feel like you're a stranger yourself. Dredge is, in my opinion, of course, a very neat game. It stays interesting for quite a while, and gameplay-wise you are definitely kept on your toes for the majority of your time bobbing across the waves. It does stay relatively simple throughout, but the unique visuals, soundscape, atmosphere and NPCs in each area keep everything fresher than the fish in your hold. There are some things I would have liked to see explored more though. The fish inventory management could have added more gameplay layers to it over time. There's this infection you can get sometimes at high stress levels, but I don't think it has different spread rate depending on how your fish are placed in your inventory or anything like that. And there isn't even any reason to keep infected fish on board anyways, they're just an instant discard. The ruined civilization at Devil's Spine stays pretty ruined. There's this one dock where you can learn a little bit more about it by viewing some murals in a cave, as well as some other goodies to be found, but I have expected some type of secret interactions or even a hidden ending here, because Devil's Spine seems to be connected to everything else that is going on this island chain, even if it has been centuries or even millennia since. Overall, I definitely enjoyed the game and I feel like I got my money's worth, and I did enjoy my time spent with it. It's relatively straightforward to fully complete as well, if that's something you're into, so I definitely think it's worth it at full price. It does make me think a little bit why they didn't release this game more in September or October for the spook factor though, right? But a summer evening can have its own tinge of spookiness to it, I suppose. Thanks for watching, hopefully you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Peace.